Welcome back to Cure for the Common Game. Today, in deck number 977, we're going to dive into Clue Ravnica Edition. Now, the Clue box comes with one each of the characters. So, I've done got several built, and that's probably where we're going to be here for the next couple of days. So, Emissary Green for 5 mana, we get a 3/3. Whenever green attacks, starting with you, each player votes for profit or security. You create a number of treasure tokens equal to twice the number of profit votes. Not bad. And put a number of 1/1 counters on your team equal to the number of security votes. So, I had a chance to play this deck last night, and it may be just a one-off scenario. No board wipe was, nobody drew it. And they just let me do what I wanted to do, which, of course, resulted in me winning the game. But mono green deck that wants tokens and counters. I mean, so, yeah. I did put the doubling season in, and the Primal Vigor, Parallel Lives, Branching Evolution, Hardened Scales. I mean, those were the first things in, because it doesn't matter what they choose, you're getting more than you should. So let's go ahead and start with our ramp, shall we? It's the usual suspects here. Elvish Mystic, Llanowar Elves, Fyndhorn Elves, Ranger's Path, good old Steve, Secure Tribe Elder, Intis Restoration, Cultivate, Karametra's Acolyte, 3 Visits and Nature's Lore, Blighted Woodland I put in here because it technically nets you a land, Skyshroud Claim, Rampant Growth, and then Awaken the Woods. I count Awaken the Woods as ramp because it gives you lands. Yeah, they're sick that turn. That's fine. They do die in a board wipe. Yeah, I know. But any deck that you're running an overrun with and you're in mono green, I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad, right? So, we have card draw. Now, we have a lot of card draw, more than normal. Spell-wise, of course, Shamanic Revelation, we have a lot of creatures. Harmonize, Rishkar's Expertise, Return of the Wild Speaker, and Last March of the Ents. Maybe the Last March of the Ents should be reserved for a deck with more creatures, but we have Beast Whisperer, so we draw when we cast a creature. We have Soul of the Harvest. Creature comes in, you draw a card. And then Toski, because, you know, deal combat damage, draw a card. So I saw none of those last night. None of them. But let's get to the rest of our creatures, shall we? I guess technically Nyx Bloom Ancient probably should have been in the ramp. 3 extra mana, but a 5/5 Trampler. Now, we're going to talk about Vidur's Gearhulk because, I mean, it's a good card. And Triskelion. We're going to lump them both together because they're artifacts. They are the only 2 artifacts in the deck. And I would take them out if I could. But I feel like I shouldn't. The reason why is this is an artifact hate deck. You know, back in the day, Green used to hate artifacts, and they used to print cards to show that. And I have a lot of them in here, so I figure if I could blow up a few Soul Rings, whatever, level the field. Anyway, that's what they're in for. They might be, in fact, collateral damage. But we have the Duskshell Crawler, which did work last night. I'm telling you what. Because that ability, each creature you control with a 1/1 counter has Trample. I was able to Forgotten Ancient fairly quickly. I think I put it out on turn 3 because I had a turn 1 elf. And then I just passed the turn. And every turn, however many, because people were double spelling, you know, and I had the hardened scales out because I did that on turn 1 or turn 2. And I was just able every turn to move the counters off of this onto something else. Didn't care what it was because, you know, eggs one basket thing, somebody blows it up. And that way it always kept the Forgotten Ancient as the littlest creature on my board so it didn't draw attention to itself. It's like, oh man, he's got all those big things. And they never killed what was making the things big. So, we have Loyal Guardian, which just, if you control your commander, put a counter on your team. Drishkar, countered creatures have our mana guys, so that's cool. Ivy Lane Dennison, another green creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Yeah, really good. Hey, y'all remember that Awake in the Woods? Right? Tireless Tracker, landfall, investigate. So you get a clue. This is also possibly card draw. I did draw this, and with the treasures that I was getting from green, because they see what you're doing with the 1/1 counters. So everybody voted for treasures every time. So it was in a standard 4-player game, so I'm getting 6 treasures on attack trigger. Okay. And then our Primordial Hydra. I'm using my Hydra's secret layer one here. Then we have stuff that works with +1/+1 counters. And tokens, you know. Evolution Sage. Proliferate. That's alright. Nissa's Judgment. Add some counters. Wildwood Scourge. Yeah, whenever one or more 1/1 counters are put on anything else that's not a Hydra, he gets a counter. Case of the Trampled Garden. Now, this is one of the new for murders, the cases. I feel obligated to explain to y'all how these work as well, because at our pre-release there was some confusion. When this case enters the battlefield, distribute 2 1/1 counters among 1 or 2 target creatures you control. Cool. To solve, creatures you control have total power 8 or greater. If unsolved, solved at the beginning of your end step. Now that's what trips people up, is that reminder text. If you cannot meet the criteria to solve it, it doesn't automatically solve at the end step. You have to meet the criteria for it to solve at the beginning of the end step, because it doesn't check constantly. It checks at the beginning of the end step. It checks to see, do you have enough to solve it? If yes, you've solved it. If no, try again. Next turn. And then solved, whenever you attack, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature gains trample. So, I've got Second Harvest, because, I mean, I've got all the other doublers. Why not? Why not make a bunch of tokens? Now, in early designs, I had Displaced Dinosaur in here, but I wanted to take the Displaced Dinosaur out because it works so well with Smothering Tithe. I'm going to put it in a green-white deck, and we're going to do shenaniganery with it. So, yeah. And we have Silk Guard. X 1/1 counters on each of up to X target creatures you control. Oh, I'm sorry, put a 1/1 on X. Yeah, and they gain hexproof to the turn. So this is a very good, no, you're not going to spot removal my guy. What is the weird category here? Yeah, these don't really classify as anything, but Seaborn Muse is a great card, and you get to untap all the time. Yeah, really kind of good. Blanchwood Armor did work last night. I drew the Blanchwood Armor, and I was like, well, let's put it on Emissary Green. He's already got a dozen counters on it, so we're just going to represent commander damage wins. And it happened. I play Fog because it is one of those cards that is a good surprise card. Everybody knows it exists, but nobody finds room in a deck for it. And sometimes fogging can equal a win if you can get them to overcommit to swing out with everything and they have no blockers, sometimes the crackback can be lethal. I'm trying out this Archdruid Charm. I like all three of the options here. And in mono green, that cost isn't, it might as well be 3 generic. But trying it out. Primal Bellow, there again, just an amazing card. As probably one of the better mono green giant growth variants. But instead of 1 mana for 3/3, you get 1 mana for number of forests. So that's a big deal. Eternal Witness to get you back to what you want. Overrun, like I said, playing with Overrun. And trying out Long Rest. I did draw it last night. I was able to use it. The only thing of mine that got destroyed was the little 0/3 Trample Enabler. Well, it had like 11 power at the time, so yeah. It was the biggest thing at that time. So they killed it, and I was able to draw the Long Rest to bring it back to re-enable that Trample on all my 1/1 countered creatures. So, let's look at removal. I count Hurricane as removal. Y'all saw that there's not a lot of reach or flying. Actually, a total absence of it in the deck. Hurricane can be very, very useful. It's also useful for those you look around and you're like, oh, you're at 4? And you don't have a way to punch through. Here we go. Beast Within, just a great card. Naturalize. You're thinking Naturalize. Why aren't you running Return to Nature? Because I'm running both. Porky no los dos. Pick your poison. I kind of like this one too. Each opponent sacks an artifact, or each opponent sacks an enchantment, or each opponent sacks a flyer. This is 1 mana? Wow. Of course, we have the Terastodon, because that thing's just mean when you start adding up counters. And I'm not above blowing up my own lands to get, 18 power worth of dudes for 8 mana. And, of course, our Acidic Slime. Trying to use as many creature versions of removal as possible so that we can proc those creature triggers. Now, here it was the start of the I hate artifacts thing. Yes, I know it hits enchantments too, and I know I've got all the cool enchantments in here. And it is kind of a nombo with that. But we are playing 100-card Magic, 100-card singleton Magic, so we're not always going to... Like last night, all I saw was the Hardened Scales. I didn't see any of the other super enchantments, like Doubling Season and all that. Never saw any of this. But the reason why Bane of Progress is in here is because artifact-centric decks can just get shut down by it. Creeping Corrosion, same way. A lot of folks don't remember this card. It is Shatterstorm in green. Yeah. The Molder Slug. It's a creature, yeah, 4/6, but we're mounting up tokens, so anything's going to be good. I had a 15/15 Llanowar last night. But each player's upkeep, they sack an artifact. And then Hum of the Radiance. Now, I know some of this is not very intuitive with the treasure tokens, but from my experience last night, I'm not keeping those treasure tokens around. I am, or the clues. I'm using the treasures to proc the clues and draw on the cards. Each artifact spell costs 1 more for each artifact its controller controls. It's like the opposite of affinity. Anyway, it's fun. I only got 4 non-basic lands, a couple of cycle lands in the Desert of the Indomitable and Slippery Karst. Reliquary Tower, because we have card draw. Not that I can prove it by last night's game. And then lastly, of course, our Rogue's Passage for when we have to get in there. And that is Emissary Green. Pretty well standard mono green +1 counters. I know there's stuff I left out, and I know all the artifact hate is probably the spaces where that stuff should go. I get it. But anyway, that's what I had. I had a blast playing it, and hope you like it. But for right now, we're going to shuffle and cut.